Okay, our final speaker today is Tan, and he's going to be talking about configuration management.
Good afternoon and good day to everyone who's still sticking around with me in this Linux Conference Australia. Welcome to my Playtime with Configuration. How did I get from shell script to Ansible Galaxy? Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodian of the land which the talk is being streamed and recorded. I would also like to pay my respect to their elders past and present. So what is this about? This is actually about a summary of my journey on how I discover the tools that I use to do my performing my configuration management. I started doing configuration on Linux system back in year 2000. It was not fun. I actually started doing it manually. And then I upskill myself to start using shell script. But it's not fun, especially when I have more than one distro to manage in my fleet. It becomes very complex and complicated to manage the shell script. And later, I discovered configuration tools, the power of cfengine and Puppet. But for whatever reason, I never liked either one of them. And eventually, in 2012, I actually discovered Ansible. When I first started to use Ansible, I only used the very basic module like script to run my shell script. And over the time, I slowly understand the power of Ansible module, and I moved my shell script into Ansible module. And eventually, I organized my Ansible into roles. And today, I'm going to share the two extreme ends of my journey: the dark age when I use shell script for configuration, and the bright galaxy when I start to play with Ansible. But who am I? My name is Tan Heang. That's the cartoon sketch of me. But in Australia, I'm actually called Heang TAN, also known by my last name, Tan. But some people still calling me by my first name, which is Sir. I answer to any one of that. And I'm a Linux user, a Linux enthusiast, which I have been playing or learn about computers since the 90s. I start with playing computer games. Not too sure anyone know Karateka, Command Conquer, Counter Strike, and Counter Strike Global Offense, and so on. Those are a few games that I play in previous. And then when I graduated in year 2000, I got employed as a junior system administrator, uh, web developers kind of position in an e-commerce company, which they have a fleet of 5 physical servers that's running on Linux, and they're providing their e-commerce solution to the customer. And that's when I discover and learn about Linux. And since then, I've been learning, living, and loving Linux. Linux become my bread and butter so much that I'm now being employed as Linux system administrator. If I'm not wearing my geeky hat, I actually love watching anime, cartoon, and all sort of movies. And if I have time, I tend to build my Lego. If I have place to actually display it, if not, there will be end up in the box behind me. It's still in the box. So, what is this configuration, and why do I think it's important, especially to Linux system administration like myself? Configuration is very, very important because it actually makes the IT system work. Imagine that you have an Apache server that you installed, but you didn't do any setup and configuration. Do you think you'll be able to serve your company website? How about you have just installed MariaDB? Do you think you'll be able to log in and enter data without proper setup and configuration? I doubt you can. And that's why we need a discipline, an engineering process, configuration management that will help us to establish and maintain the consistency in the IT infrastructure by ensuring our design, our system, the state of our application and services in the environment they are running in, being managed, tracked, and trusted. To me, a tool that do that is very important because it will be the utility to ensure the consistency that we want in our infrastructure. It will also be the enablement to ensure that we can scale up or down our infrastructure and software. And lastly, the most important bit to me is it actually remove and reduce all the repetitive and boring bits of system administration and configuration tasks that I've been doing manually. Now, let me bring you back in time to the dark age when I do shell script configuration. I will need the demo, a manual Apache web server installation on CentOS 7, and then I'm going to customize my web server landing page. So first I need to do is sudo to root, and then I'm going to install the web server with a PHP module. After installation of Apache web server complete, we need to enable it and start the service. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a customized landing page as well as a PHP info page. Let's check the customized web server. Yep, and let's see the info page for the PHP, and we would be using PHP version 5. Installing Apache web server with a customized index page is very simple and straightforward with menu steps. But that is only possible or feasible if you have 1, 2, 3, maybe 5 web servers. But in a web server farm, usually we have more than 10, hundreds or 1,000 web servers. It's going to be a lot of manual typing when we do it manually. Therefore, I started to use shell script. I created a few shell script based on the manual step that I have done. For example, CentOS 7 setup.sh, I have yum install and the customized index page. But this file is only catered for CentOS 7 installation. It will not work for other distro, for example Ubuntu, because Ubuntu use a different application installation method called apt, and the Apache web server in Ubuntu is not HTTP, it's Apache 2, and therefore I need to create a separate script for it. If I have other distro, I might need to create more scripts to actually cater for those web server installation. I created one third script which combines the CentOS 7 and Ubuntu into this script, which this script actually have a detection of operating system that the script is going to be run on, and then based on the operating system or distro, for example in this case CentOS or Ubuntu, it will install HTTPD or Apache web server. Now I'm going to run this guy against my web server, which is in this file, CentOS 7, 7.2 and Ubuntu, and I'm going to run it in a for loop. The Apache web server setup is complete on that 3 system. Let us go into them and verify the landing page, which is the customized landing page that I have. Same go to here and the Ubuntu. As you can see from the demonstration, using shell script as your configuration tools is going to be disaster. Imagine that you're trying to set up 500 servers used completely by shell script and SSH. It'll take a while and you will not be nice. Especially shell script is not a configuration tools to start with. And that's why in 2012, I start looking for a better tools to replace my shell script configuration. I have used cfengine in the past and just started to learn Puppet during that time. But neither of these tools fulfill what I think I need in a configuration management tools. So what I want is something too simple to start, which can quickly use and adapt my shell script instead of rewriting a whole bunch of configuration into the tools. I do not want to have extra connection. Maybe just use SSH, like how I have run my shell script over the SSH channel. I definitely do not want to have additional package to be installed on the target nodes that I'm going to manage. because installing additional package there means that I need to do extra work to ensure the application or the daemon that running on the target nodes is compliant and workable in the with the master nodes or the management nodes. I want a configuration tool that can use an easy and understandable syntax, something that descriptive, telling us what it's going to do, what is going to run. And lastly, I want the configuration setup to be idempotent, which means that configuration can be reapplied as many times as it runs without changing the end result beyond what had been defined. And that's when I discovered Ansible. Ansible was first introduced by Michael Dehan in 2012, mainly written in Python, which is the favorite language for everyone that do programming, DevOps, developers, and so on. But the configuration file in the playbooks actually use YAML. YAML itself is fairly easy to understand language. Plus, Ansible also can start with a simple architecture. Any one of the nodes that have Ansible installed can be the control or management node to be used to manage the fleet of systems. And that's why I choose Ansible. Few more other reasons I have chosen Ansible at the end is it's agentless. You do not need to install additional package on the target nodes. You just require SSH and Python. As I mentioned earlier, YAML is a very descriptive language. It's so descriptive and human readable and easy to understand that if I give you the code, you most likely can decipher what is supposed to be run. And it also support idempotency. It ensures the same config is maintained over the target nodes, no matter how many times we rerun and rerun. And here, I'm going to show you a simple Ansible architecture design that I have done, which is used in this, which is going to use in the next demo. I have installed Ansible into my management nodes, which is MGT. And within the management nodes, you still need one more key piece, which is an inventory. Usually, it's a text file that have the list of hosts that the Ansible is going to manage. And obviously, we will need SSH connectivity to our target host. And now, in this demo, I'm going to show you how to do it. I have shown you how to install Apache Web Server with a shell script. And now, I'm going to use the same shell script and run it with Ansible. In order to run Ansible, I will need to have Ansible installed on my control node, MGT, which I'm going to install it via yum. Next, I will need an inventory file. The inventory file defines hosts and group of hosts which the Ansible will operate upon. For this, I'm going to use the web server text file that we have created as an Ansible inventory. I'm going to create a simple Ansible playbook, which I'm going to call the same thing, the script module, as well as the script that I'm going to run. And we are going to run this using Ansible playbook command. Now, looking at this output, it actually tells us task reporting. It gathered the information, facts from our target nodes, and then telling us what it is doing. It's setting up Apache, and there's something changed on those boxes. And this is a summary report of what happened. Since we are running as a script, it will not be idempotent. It will still tell us something have changed, which is part of the dilemma when we use the module script. The true power of Ansible is when you are using or utilizing Ansible module correctly. Take for example, I have created a myappsetup.yaml, which is an Ansible playbook using the correct Ansible module instead of using script. In this new Ansible playbook, instead of using script module, I'm using other Ansible modules such as package to install relevant package for CentOS, and I'm using service to start the service HTTP service for CentOS as well. As for installing Apache in Ubuntu, I need to install Apache 2 as well as enable Apache 2 service. To customize my index page based on the hostname, I use the template module, which utilize or convert Ansible facts or variable. And lastly, I use the copy module to copy the files from the management nodes into the target nodes. For this, I have created a new inventory file, host, and within this inventory file, I have grouped all 3 of my web servers under a host group named web servers. We are going to run our new playbook and against the inventory file. As you can see from this Ansible run, the output is much nicer. It tells you what you have done, and if it's already done, for example PHP have been installed, it will just show you OK. And if we have something changed, for example my template is different for the index.html, it will tell you something have changed. And if I run this playbook again, you will notice that there's nothing changed anymore because everything has been set up according to our Ansible playbook. We have used Ansible playbook to set up and configure our web server using mysetup.yaml. Now I'm going to show you how do we make our mysetup.yaml modular. I'm going to split my task into 3 different roles. Now let's go into roles, and you will see that I have 3 roles. A roles that take care of the part for Ubuntu, the roles that take care of CentOS, and a role that take care of Apache configuration. We will look at our CentOS role. The main playbook here is under task main, and in here you will see that I have configured to have additional package to be installed for CentOS, and then I want to remove unwanted package here. In Apache, I will have a place where I need to install Apache Web Server for CentOS and Apache Web Server for Ubuntu, as well as extra module that we require for our web server, plus the customization of our landing page. As for this, I have created a new playbook called site.yaml, which will call each of the row when it run. So, for example, I have CentOS that will only include the CentOS package and Ubuntu. This will be run for all hosts, but if you are part of web server, you will run and set up Apache. Now let us try out this playbook against our existing host. And you can see that there's no error and there's 6 change. If we scroll up and see the output, you will notice that it will install CentOS stuff for only CentOS systems, and you install Ubuntu role when it's detected is Ubuntu. But if it's a Apache role, because these 3 servers is in the web servers host group, it will install Apache and configure. In the demo, I show you how we can quickly use the shell script in Ansible, and then how do we quickly do an Ansible playbook before we go into Ansible role. So what is Ansible role that I demonstrate in the example earlier? It's just a way for us to develop reusable playbook by grouping the component and encapsulating the task, the variable files together. It actually helps to modularize and organize our Ansible playbook. But the good news is we do not need to write all the Ansible roles by ourselves. You can always go on to Ansible Galaxy and search for other expert written roles. The easiest way that I find is go to the Ansible Galaxy website and search for the role or contain that you want. Or if you want, you still can run it via command line using Ansible Galaxy search and the keyword that you're looking for. As my favorite author in Ansible Galaxy, Jeff Gerling, aka Gerling Guy, have marvelous role standard written in Ansible Galaxy. Check him out. One last thing good about Ansible Galaxy is it actually helps you to have a standardized role structure when you want to write your own Ansible roles. I'm going to show you when you run on the command line Ansible Galaxy. This is what you will find, which I find that is not really interesting to look at. But if you search it on the website, this is what you're going to find. And you will have a lot of more information. This is what Apache and how many people have downloaded it. And this is my favorite author, Gerling. So far, I have only been using Ansible on the terminal using command line. But with a great tool such as Ansible, if you only do things via command line by typing it, I believe eventually we will have a lot of problem because as a human, we tend to type and cause typo error. You might be targeting a wrong system because you just target a wrong environment. Instead of dev, you go to prod. But don't you worry, there's actually an open source project named AWX, which actually provide a pretty decent, I would say nice web user interface for newbies that does not really fancy command line, and REST API for people that doing development and DevOps. And you actually have the task engine is built on top of our existing Ansible core infrastructure. You don't need anything extra. And AWX itself will give you a centralized location to manage the Ansible playbook and inventories. And now let me quickly show you the demo how I use Ansible AWX to deploy my Apache setup. How we can import the Ansible role that we have created earlier into the AWX. This is my AWX demo box. After you log in, we need to actually create a project. Under project tab, you're going to add a new project. I'm going to name my project LCA 22 Ansible. I'm going to choose where the project is going to get the source from. I'm going to get it from the GitHub that I have created. And I'm going to just save it. After you save, you can create inventory. Inventory, like I said earlier, is where you keep all your host information, your remote target. And for this, I'm going to add a new inventory. You can put anything here, but I'm going to say Ansible 2022. Let's call it inventory. And I'm going to save it. After you save, there's one important option here called source. And this is important because this is a feature that let us source from the project that we have created earlier. I'm going to source from the project, and the project we have is LCA 2022 Ansible, and I'm going to choose the inventory file that I have kept in my Git repo, which is Ansible host that we have been using. And I'm going to name it. I'm going to name this source host, and I'm going to save. And after I save, I do a sync. By doing a sync, AWX will actually import the host from the project into AWX. It will take a while. Let's come to here. There you go. And we will have our web server host group as well as the 3 web servers in the host group. The next thing we need to do is to create an credential for remote login. I'm going to use Vagrant, which is the default user that I have in my VM, and I'm going to set up as a machine credential with the username Vagrant and with its password. In a production environment, I do not encourage you to use password. Please use accessory private key for login. The next thing in here, you should actually ensure that your previous escalation method is set to sudo, and we are going to save this. The last part for getting AWS working is we need to set up job template. In here, we're going to add a new job template, and we are going to source it again from our project that we have done earlier. And I'm going to choose a playbook, and the playbook is site.yaml. And I'm going to have my inventory point to this guy. And to ensure, I'm going to use Vagrant. And I'm going to say this is my LCA 2022 site setup. After that is done, make sure that you click on privilege escalation. And if this is meant to run repetitively, enable fact storage as well. That will speed up in the future run. Save. After you save, you have the options to launch the job. I will launch it now. The job complete without any failure, and we have a few changes in our CentOS and Ubuntu setup. If you scroll up further in the output windows, you will notice that the output display here is quite similar to the output that we saw when we run Ansible via the command line. One of the benefits that you can get from the output is when you click on the output and you can drill down further of what have been done or run by the Ansible, it will display in a JSON format. Click on the rocket to relaunch the job, and that will start the jobs again. When you run the job again for the second time, you will notice there is no more changes because of the idempotent behavior of Ansible. If you want to get more information of how to use AWS, you can always get the help page here. And that concludes my discovery journey to find the right tools to help me to do my configuration management. I have started doing shell scripting, ended up I shelf it out, and I use Ansible mainly to do my configuration management. And before I end the talk, I actually want to say thank you for LCA 2022 for providing this opportunity for me to share this journey, and all the attendees and volunteers and tech support who work hard for the success. I actually want to have a special shout out to Emily Dunham because of her speech, "You Should Speak," that give me the courage and encouragement to submit my talk to LCA. And special thanks to Michael Dehan for his wonderful work in Ansible, and Jeff Gerling for sharing his Ansible knowledge, which I bought a book from. If you have any feedback, comment, and questions, you can drop me an email, send me a tweet, and I have my public GitHub that have contained some of my work in Ansible, my try and error in Puppet, and some of my containerizations tryout. I do have an infrequent update blog in WordPress, which I update maybe once a year, but that's it. Thank you very much, and I hope my journey will kickstart your configuration story as well. Simon, I can't hear you.
Luckily, I was muted when I saw them. So someone asks, wouldn't it be easier to have the HTTPD/Apache name as a host var and then use that to install the package and service with the package and service module?
Yes, it is. I'm just giving a quick demonstration of everything in the text-based file. The correct way I would be doing is put it as a variable and use that fax to set it for different distribution or operating system. If you have different package, for example, you are going to install Nginx instead of Apache, it's possible.
Okay, I think that's all the questions. Thank you very much for your talk. That is the end of our conference today. Thank you for everyone for coming along. Thank you to all the speakers, and thank you to the LCA tech people in our room and elsewhere. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Bye.